I hope everybody had a incredibly thankful Thanksgiving and they ate something delicious and enjoyed their time with friends and family. Anybody have any interesting Thanksgiving stories? Anything unique happen these past 4 days? My daughter threw up in the car 2 times in a row on the way back from my in-laws Thursday night and my parents on Friday night. Like literally the same street 5 minutes before we got to our apartment. Like in the identical spot, she decided that it was time to throw up in the car. So I hope all of your stomachs are strong and considerably more intact than my daughter's. I'm worried about that. Yeah, she did not enjoy the experience of throwing up or being covered in it, covered in what she ate before she went to bed. But yeah, besides that, I don't think she's sick nor feeling ill from anything else. So here's what we're going to do today. Here's our schedule. We're going to talk about this cartoon for a little bit. I hope that you find this interesting and cute. We're going to go over the headline of the day. Maybe you have an idea of what it is. I'm going to ask you guys to guess. Think about it. What do you think is perhaps today's headline of the day? And then I'm going to show you a video clip, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing this week in connection to our class's Action Civics project to improve students' access to clean and lead-free drinking water. So that's what we have in store for today. So let's talk about this cartoon. Perhaps you saw this on TV, or perhaps you heard of this, right? But every every year, the president pardons a turkey. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean to pardon someone? Or in this case, pardon a turkey? What does that involve? Because it's a unique power that exists just for the president. And I'm going to pour some tea. So put a response or share a response. I'll be back in a second. This is the perfect day for white tea. White tea on a rainy day. Any thoughts on pardoning? What does that mean? In this case, pardoning a turkey is a tradition. And to pardon means to be released from a crime, right? You're let go free. So in this case, when the president pardons a turkey, that turkey doesn't get slaughtered. It doesn't become dinner. It's free to go, right? So that's pardoning a turkey. But presidents don't just get to sparing its life. But presidents don't just get to spare a turkey's life. They get to pardon humans. And there's no restrictions necessarily on who they get to pardon, why they get to pardon, how many people they get to pardon. And over the weekend, or over Thanksgiving Day weekend, Trump also pardoned a person. His name's Michael Flynn. And Michael Flynn was part of his administration, and he was convicted of colluding with the Russians and lying to investigators about doing that to help Trump get elected in 2016. So he faced jail time, and then until just recently, Trump pardoned him. Okay, so that's what a pardon is. Now, before I show you something, do you think it's more or less likely? Do you think like Trump would be on the top of a list of people like issuing pardons, or he would be on the bottom of the list that you predict that he hasn't issued many pardons in his time as president so far? What do you think? Do you think that he uses this a lot, or do you think he uses this sparingly? Any thoughts? Well, what do you see here? Trump is right up here. Compared to other presidents, is he pardoning a lot of people? How does Trump compare to other presidents in the amount of presidential pardons? Very few, right? And perhaps this is because Trump is getting ready right before he leaves office. He's going to pardon a whole boatload of people. That's possible. But so far, he's only issued 28 pardons, 16 commutations. That's like reducing a sentence. So you're not like wiping the slate clean, but like you're reducing their sentence. And so that total, like clemency is like being lenient. So that's both of those things is like 44 in total. But there's one very unique thing about pardoning, because although it's specific in the Constitution, right? In the Constitution, it says the president has the power to grant pardons. That's all it says. It's explicit, but it's vague. And so some people are under the impression or making the prediction that before Trump leaves office, he's going to attempt to pardon himself. Because, as you know, Trump has been the target of certain lawsuits and perhaps lawsuits in the future. And so there's nothing that says in the Constitution specifically that a president can't pardon himself. And so they think perhaps Trump might try to do that. And even to the extent that like there's a lawsuit centered in New York City about his taxes, that there's a thought that maybe he'll get charged with tax fraud. But the DA won't do that until he's out of the presidency, so he has no chance to pardon himself. If he tries to do that, again, it's never been done before. No president has tried to pardon himself before. And so it would be interesting to see if that would be something that would work its way through the Supreme Court. And if so, how the Supreme Court would rule on that. What would they say about a president who tried to pardon himself? So that's definitely something that we have to look towards again before January 20th, when Biden assumes office. Is will Trump pardon other people? And probably he will, but will one of those people be himself? Because that might happen. Okay, headline of the day. Anyone know what they think is the headline of the day? It also has to do with the Supreme Court. This was an interesting case as well. The Supreme Court made a very interesting ruling recently. Any guesses? Anybody know something that the Supreme Court ruled on recently? They made a decision based upon something that our governor, Cuomo, had an executive order that he issued. So Cuomo, in an attempt to keep everybody safe during COVID, created an executive order. Didn't they exclude unauthorized people from the census? The Supreme Court? Interesting. Send me something about that. I've read some things about the census recently, but I don't think specifically that. Here's what Cuomo said. He said, if you're in a red zone, there's lots of COVID cases. You can't have more than 10 people gather it at a religious institution. If you're in an orange zone, so like less COVID cases in a red zone, you can't have more than, I think it was like 100 people gather at a religious event or institution. Okay? So that was argued against, and it worked its way up to the Supreme Court. What was people's argument? What problem did people have with that? Like if you had to point to something and say that's wrong because, and then point to a part of the Constitution, what part of the Constitution did people point to? Why would people take aim at this? the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights, specifically what freedom in the First Amendment? Freedom of religion, exactly. So that was their argument. They're like, hey, you have indoor dining, you have gyms open, all this other stuff, right? You have size restrictions, and like you're just making this about religious institutions. You're not taking in consideration how big this church, synagogue, mosque is, right? So they sued. Worked its way up to the Supreme Court, and this was the results of the case. And so this shouldn't be surprising to you, right? That maybe like you would have predicted it would be a 5-4 decision in favor of freedom of religion over public health. Why is this not surprising based upon the makeup of the court? Remember, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Who took her place? And then based upon that, why might this not be surprising? Do you remember the name of our new justice? Anyone remember? Amy Coney Barrett, right? Was she liberal or conservative? Conservative, right? So you have RBG was a liberal, she's out, Barrett's in, splits the court 5-4, right? Conservatives can control most of the seats in the Supreme Court. The majority of the Supreme Court are Republicans, and Republicans don't really care for COVID and don't want it to control their lives. Exactly, right? Conservatives, Republicans want smaller government, right? So these judges also favor smaller government, more freedom, and they would favor, in this case, religious freedom over public health. And so it's not surprising, right, that based upon the makeup of the court, this is what happens. And it'd be interesting to see what cases also the courts decide to hear and how these decisions play out given the new makeup of the court. So here we have our two headlines. One's from a conservative paper, one's from a liberal paper. And so based upon how some of the language in these headlines, which do you think is from which? Which do you think is the conservative paper? Which do you think is the liberal paper? Bruce Beck says liberal left, which is the term, right? If you're conservative, it means that you're on the right. Liberal means you're on the left. Conservative, right? Do we agree with that? So perhaps you notice some language in the one on the right that makes you think that's conservative. What's some of the language that stands out to you that makes you think that, or something else perhaps that you see in the one in the right that you think makes it conservative? Worship wins. That sounds good, right? So if you're this is from Fox News, you're right. If you're from Fox News, you're probably happy about this decision. So it's going to be optimistic. It's going to celebrate it. The Supreme Court knocks down Cuomo. You're probably going to like that too. Probably don't like Cuomo if you read Fox News because you're probably a Republican and you probably didn't vote for him because he's a Democrat. So this looks at you know the results of the case in a much more positive point of view to a conservative, and this one is kind of more neutral. That's from the New York Times. So that's our headline for the day. This week, I'm going to be sharing more headlines of the day with you, and then I'm going to give you some time to work on your projects. So let's talk about your projects and what we're going to be working on. What are you going to do that's going to help our cause of making sure that students all over and their families have access to clean, safe, lead-free drinking water? So I'm going to show you a video clip from an organization called Generation Citizen, who we've been working with these past number of years, and that put on an event every year called Civics Day, which classmates from USA have been able to participate in, and this year as well. So I'm going to show you this video, and then we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to give you some time to look at some of the project materials. So I have to do some reorganization. I may mute my mic, and then mute my mic over here. Present, yes. Let me try one more thing. Sorry, people.
Do you sometimes see problems in your community or school that you wish?
So this should work now. Sorry.
Do you sometimes see problems in your community or school that you wish you had the power to fix? Issues like college access, violence in school, youth homelessness, and environmental pollution? Have you ever thought of how you might address those issues? There are many challenges in our communities, our cities, our states, and our country. At Generation Citizen, we believe that young people have the power to drive change in your community and play a valuable role in leading us to a better tomorrow by learning, practicing, and taking real action today. Every time we see a positive change in this country, young people are at the forefront. From the civil rights movement to the response to gun violence in schools, young people are leading us forward. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Engaging effectively with government and the political process takes knowledge, strategy, organization, cooperation, a lot of reflection, and hard work. Creating change also often takes time, so there's no better time to start learning and trying than right now. In Generation Citizen, you have the opportunity to join thousands of students from across the country who are practicing the same civic skills you will as you work to take political action to improve your communities. Now, we know oftentimes these calls for action can sound a little too idealistic and not too realistic. Change in our democracy is often challenging. Our country's entire history is one of progress and disappointment at the same time. That's why we're going to guide you through a concrete process that will help you and your classmates take action on an issue you care about. We call it Action Civics. Action Civics gives you and your friends the tools you need to be able to use your power as a change maker and to channel your energy to impact the issues you care about. Over the course of your Generation Citizens Action Civics experience, You'll work with your peers through 3 stages of a project. Part 1. Plan it. You and your classmates have the power to identify a topic you care about in your community. You'll then research that topic by interviewing community members, reading articles, and meeting with experts to explore why the issue is happening, what's being done to address the problem in your community and elsewhere, and how you and your peers could make an impact. Then, your class will set a goal and create an action plan to help you accomplish it. Part 2. Do it. Generation Citizen is about more than just writing a plan. It's about bringing that plan to life. In the second stage of your project, you and your classmates will be engaging in real-world advocacy. You might host meetings with community members, write articles, testify at hearings, organize events, or practice any of the other behaviors community members regularly engage in to drive change and amplify their voices. Part 3. Share it. In the last part of the program, your class will present your advocacy project at an event we call Civics Day. Civics Day is your chance to hear what student changemakers have been working on from across your community, as well as to speak up and share with community members your perspective and impact on important local issues. Finally, you'll take a huge step back to reflect on what you've learned, what you've accomplished, what you failed at, and how to continue on this lifelong journey of civic engagement. Welcome to Generation Citizen. We're excited to hear what you have to say and to see the impact you'll have on your communities this semester and as changemakers in years to come.
So if you take a look at the 2 things that were shared with you, sorry guys, I was muted for a sec. If you take a look at the 2 things that were shared with you in Google Classroom, is that video that we just watched, and then this form, our planning survey sheet. And so in the video you saw like there were 3 steps, right? There was plan it, do it, and then share it. And so those are the 3 things that we're going to do together, and we also started doing together. But today and tomorrow, you need to start thinking about what type of contribution do you want to make to our class project. Now, we already had 4 students do a wonderful job sharing our project at an international symposium through the Goethe Institute. And many of you, if that's something that resonates with you, will have the opportunity to be involved in something similar through New York City Civics Day, which Generation Citizen hosts. And that's why there's a question all the way at the end that asks you, are you interested in being involved in Civics Day? And you can choose yes or no, either one. It won't break my heart if you choose no. But you can see a picture of what the event looks like when it was in person. It was very cool. It was at the New York Bar Association. It's a beautiful building in Midtown. And you can see some previous students of mine presenting their project. We're going to do the same thing. It's just going to be virtual this year. And there were like different community leaders, and there were different politicians that attended, and same thing this year. And you'll get to collaborate and work together and learn from other schools and students as well about the community issues that they care most about. Yes, bars and bar exams. So like the bar is like the organization that is certifies all the lawyers in New York State, and so they have a big fancy building that they have meetings at, and so this was their space in New York City. So it's a very cool event. So you should think about if that's something that you want to be a part of. But regardless of if you want to participate in Civics Day or not, you are going to contribute to our project by you're going to do something and make something and do some advocacy on behalf of our goal, which is to ensure that students and their families have access to lead-free, safe drinking water. So this will be due tomorrow. You don't need to like rush through this because I want you to think about it. And it's editable, so if you change your mind, you can always like resubmit this as well. So you're gonna put your email, your name, what period you're in, I think I was telling you this is like my favorite meme, the Ralph Williams "I'm helping" meme, right? Because you're gonna help. You guys are gonna help. You can click here, and it's gonna bring you to a document called the Tactic Toolkit. Oh, this isn't okay. So I'm sharing in a way that you're not gonna see it, but you can click that, and it'll show you like exemplars for all these things, right? Whether you want to compile research or make a video, whether you want to call an elected politician, send an email, send a letter, or rally support through like a social media campaign. So you're going to decide like what avenue or what tactic you're going to use, and you're also going to decide, again, whatever you choose, is it connected to developing your argument, lobbying decision makers, so reaching out if you're specifically reaching out to an elected official, or like if you're, let's say, posting something to Instagram or Facebook trying to get, let's say, like you have a goal of 20 people to test their water at home, right? That would be something that has to do with rallying support because you're trying to build support for this movement and for your goal of ensuring people's water is safe. If you click here, it's going to bring you to our project website. And one of the things that you'll see on our project website are some of our proposals. One of which should sound familiar, is to share the results of lead testing kits by zip code to help inform the public about the severity of the problem by locality. That's something that we've been doing ourselves, but it's not something that's required or that's shared by the state. So it's like perhaps everyone should have access not to individuals' results, but like the results for their neighborhood. So you can see if this is a problem in your neighborhood. That's a reasonable ask. Like that's within the governor's control or like the Office of Environmental Protection. They could do that if they sought to. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to advocate for these changes, um, including these four changes that we've talked about and developed so far. So you should think about who are you going to contact: local government, state government, the city mayor, somebody in state assembly or the state senate. I think I have a different one thing I want to see. I tried to update one of these photos. Yeah. So here, one thing I wanted to show you. So this is the letter that I got back with my lead test results, and I told you that you can see like my results came back negative, 0, even though it's impossible to know for sure that there's absolutely 0. When I was looking at the results that you shared with me, um, so you should know this, Fruzbeck, like we're in like the anomaly. Like I think about half, maybe a little bit more than half of the results came back positive with some amount of lead. And some of your results had as much as like 5 or 6 ppbs, even though the action level set by the EPA is 15. So this is something that affects us. It affects you guys. It affects your families. And based upon the results that we saw, this is something that is relevant that we should continue talking about and bringing awareness to. And so some people are like, "Hey, I never got my results." I'm like, you know what? If you didn't get your results back, I would make your project contacting the agency and find out why that you didn't get your results back and try to do something about it. And so if you look over here, you have you have he's like in charge of the whole. He's like the commissioner of the Bureau of Water Supply. You can contact him, right? So these are people that you would target, especially if you didn't get your results back. I would start here. Find out what happened to your test kit and where your results are. All right. And then also tell them like about you should make these results public by zip code. Be a smiling bear with your hand up. If you have a question about your individual project, if you have a concern, ask this, ask. Don't ask the bear, ask me, but you can put it here so I can see your questions. If you have a question based upon our project website, because I want you to look at our project website, there's something that you need clarity about, that you want to know more about, put that down as well. And then finally, think about if you want to be part of Civics Day, which is a really awesome event. And if you're not sure, click this link, read more about Civics Day, take a look at there's videos that you can watch that will give you more information about Civics Day. And if this excites you and that you find this interesting, then click the yes box. I'll send you more information. It's going to be the week of Martin Luther King Day. So I think that's the third Monday in January. It's going to be one of those days, but they haven't set the specific day yet. But we're looking for representation in like all government classes. So we have like a nice group of students that are interested in representing our project when we share it in Civics Day. Cool. Okay, so before I let you pursue this form, if you haven't already done so, look at the toolkit, look at any of the links. Do you have any like basic clarifying questions that we should go over about what we're working on, why we're working on this, what your part is? It might be a little less intimidating to do this at home actually during virtual learning, because I remember last year and the year before and the year before that, I would have students making calls. They would be calling their members of city council in class. They'd be in different corners of the room on their phone calling people. Maybe that's a little less intimidating to do at home. And if you choose not to make a call, if you choose to send an email, that's completely fine as well. But calls are great because calls can't be ignored. When you get a human on the phone, they're not gonna just like be like, "Oh, I gotta go by," and hang up on you. But it's easy to ignore an email, so that's why sometimes it's really good to call someone. You usually get more likely to get the answers that you want when you call. Okay, so peruse the form. Again, you don't need to submit it until tomorrow. Start thinking about what tactic you want to use, who you want to contact related to your project contribution, and let me know if you have questions.